Japanese animation is a vast medium with an even more vast culture surrounding it. There are thousands of anime communities and millions of anime fans on the internet. And all of these individuals and groups have unique anime watching habits. Whether they watch one episode of one show every week or marathon 3 shows every couple of days to anything in between. But in general, anime watching habits can be broken down into 2 main categories: backlog anime viewing and current anime viewing. Backlogged anime is stuff that's either already completed its TV run or has been running for more than 1 season. A lot of anime fans outside Japan primarily watch backlogged shows, either because those are the ones that they've heard of, or because they only watch shows after they've been released in other countries, which usually takes some time after the original Japanese broadcast. However, the practice of watching currently airing anime has grown in prominence over the years, and is now pretty common even among fans outside Japan. The process of getting into and following current shows, however, can be very confusing for new fans, and I've never really seen a widespread, simple, straightforward guide to how to get into this stuff, so that's what I hope to provide with this video. The most important thing to realize about how anime is released in Japan is that most of it comes out on a seasonal basis. There are 4 seasons of TV which pretty much perfectly begin and end at the start and end of the year. The winter season begins in January, the spring season begins in April, the summer season begins in July, and the fall season begins in October. In the current anime landscape, a typical series will run for 1 season, totaling 12, 13, or sometimes 11 episodes depending on the show. Once a show has ended, typically another show in a similar genre will take over its time slot, but for the most part, Japanese broadcast times and networks don't really affect the way fans around the world consume their shows. More ambitious or higher budget series will often run for 24 to 26 episodes across 2 seasons, and really successful 12 or 13 episode shows often receive a 2nd season somewhere down the line. Meanwhile, anime that are aimed at children and preteens tend to run a lot longer. A lot of Sunday morning shows tend to run for 52 episodes, totaling 1 year of broadcast time, and adaptations of long-running manga series that are aimed at children can often go on for several hundred episodes, basically as long as there's demand for it to keep going. Every time a new season of anime begins, a whole flurry of new shows are released. The spring and fall seasons usually have the biggest crop of new shows, often totaling well over 40. Shows that run for 26 or 24 episodes usually start in either the spring or fall season and continue running through the summer or winter season. Meanwhile, the summer and winter seasons usually have 1-season shows or a lot of sequels to previously successful 1-season shows. The main method that fans outside of Japan use to keep track of all the currently airing shows are charts, which are created by other fans. The past few years have given rise to incredibly handy tools such as AnyChart.net, which has countdowns to the next episode of each currently airing show, or AnimeCalendar.net, which lets you create your own calendar for following the shows that you care about. These websites usually give you information such as summaries of the show, a glimpse at its artwork, information about what studio is making the show, and what kind of series it's going to be in terms of length and release dates. If these sites don't give you a good enough idea of what you're getting into with each show, there are thousands of anime blogs, forums, YouTubers, all kinds of people ready to inform you. If you searched something like the name of a show and then the words episode 1, you'll get a bunch of blog posts, forum posts, YouTube videos, people talking about their impressions of the episode. You can even use my channel, DigiDoesAnime, though I don't really summarize the episodes usually, I just react to them. A lot of these anime bloggers are probably going to be much more experienced watching anime, and they'll probably use a lot of terminology that might be confusing for newcomers, but there's always Google to find out what certain terms mean, and of course if you ever ask me about what certain words I use in my videos mean, I'll gladly explain it to you in the comments. Now, hopefully you've got a good general sense of what current anime is, how it works, and how to keep track of different shows. But then the most important question, of course, is where do you watch it? In the mid to late 2000s, the primary method of watching anime before it had a chance to make it outside of Japan was through fan subs. It used to be that not every show got fan subbed, and typically you'd wait between 4 days to several weeks to whenever the fan subbers got around to it for an episode to come out, and whether or not they finished the show was entirely up to their whim, since they weren't exactly getting paid for this and it's not technically legal. However, as anime fandom grew and the culture of fan subs grew, there emerged more and more groups until it got to the point where every show was being subbed, usually by the end of the day that that the episode came out. Eventually, Japanese companies caught on that a huge part of their fan base outside the country was starting to get used to watching currently airing shows in Japanese with subtitles. Around the time of the American recession in 2008, the anime industry in the US took a huge blow, with lots of licensing companies closing shop and DVDs getting much cheaper. Because of this, Japanese companies were no longer even making enough money from having their shows licensed and released here on such cheap DVDs, so it made it so localizing was not even worth it for them. So Japanese companies eventually figured out that if they cut out some of the middlemen, they could get their shows to their other audiences in the same way that those audiences were already watching them, in fast, streamable, subtitled video. The movement is not 100% complete, but as of the spring season, almost everything is now available for free legal streaming online. The forerunner of all these legal streaming sites is Crunchyroll, which you can go and watch shows in standard definition with a couple of ads for free, or for just $7 a month, which, at least if you live in the US like me, is not a lot of money. You can get those videos in 1080p HD with no ads whenever you want. The other big site that does streaming is Hulu, and Funimation runs through Hulu, so if you go to Funimation's website, they usually have a lot of shows available for streaming that are run through Hulu. Hulu has a lot more ads, especially if you're using it for free, and I think that even if you pay for it, they still have ads. That's what I've heard. So I don't really understand that business model, but nonetheless, shows that aren't on Crunchyroll are often on Hulu. There's only, I think, 2 or 3 shows that are airing this season that aren't on Hulu or Crunchyroll. But since not every show is available for free legal streaming, sometimes you might have to defer to fan subs to watch a show. Now, technically these are illegal and considered a form of copyright infringement to download subtitled video, but it's also not really illegal, and it's kind of a great consumer practice. So personally, I would endorse it, especially if you're a try before you buy person like I am, where I'd rather not pay for a show that I haven't seen before and would rather download the fan subs, and if I like the show, maybe pay for it later. Because of the questionable legality of it, I'm not going to link you or tell you where you can find fan subbed anime, but if you go on My Anime List, most shows have a list of all the fan sub groups that are covering the show, and you can just find those groups and pretty easily get those shows. There's also a lot of illegal streaming sites out there, all these like watch anime on kind of sites, which these days have pretty decent video quality. It used to be they always looked like ass, now they look pretty acceptable, I guess. Personally, I wouldn't recommend using them because they're probably profiting off of your use, unless you have ad blocker enabled, which I definitely recommend, because some of these sites can be malicious as well or have lots of pop-up ads. But if you absolutely can't find a show anywhere else, you could venture into these sites. It's pretty easy to just type like watch name of show and find something like that, but don't really recommend it. If you can, go on Crunchyroll or Hulu or something. So anyway, hopefully this guide has been helpful to getting you into currently airing anime if you weren't already. And if you start following shows, be sure and subscribe to my channel, DigiDoesAnime, where I've been episodically vlogging every show that comes out this season. I recently finally watched at least some of every single show that aired this season, and very soon I'll be doing a video where I'll recommend you what shows are worth watching this season. So if you want to stick around and wait a little while, like you can't figure out which of the 40 shows airing right now you want to check out, wait for that video and I'll give you some recommendations. Anyway, that's all.